Hey everybody, this is the Slightest Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about a television show that was canceled before it ever premiered on DC Universe. And that show was Swamp Thing, which I have to say, there's a reason why it got canceled. Do I necessarily believe what the people who worked on the show said? Yes and no. See, first of all, it's kind of embarrassing that your show gets canceled before it ever premieres. That's just embarrassing. Even some of the crappiest shows still at least get to show their first episode, or at least get a first season before they get the axe. But this show got the axe before it ever. As you know, DC Universe is kaput. It's done. Swamp Thing kind of helped put the kibosh into it, but yeah, it wasn't really that great of like a streaming app. The shows were pretty decent, but they really didn't help in terms of ratings, because after the show season would end, people would talk about it for about a week, maybe a week and a half, and after that they don't talk about it no more until the next season. The best show they ever had on there was Stargirl, and it wasn't even really a DC Universe show. They had the first episode on DC Universe, but then the rest of the episodes were on the CW. And now the second season is going to be primarily on the CW, which I fear because I'm scared that CW will screw the show up. Now HBO Max has become the new DC Universe. However, the problem with that is they didn't bring Stargirl over for some bizarre reason, but they did bring their other show. Harley Quinn was a pretty good show. I really like that. That was on DC Universe. That's on HBO Max. Doom Patrol, even though they never became the superhero team, is still a pretty cool drama with superheroes. Titans is a mess, but hopefully the third season will get better. Then there's Young Justice, which I did not like the third season at all. And I mean, period. I did not like it. I did not like it. I did not like it. And I am furious because that show was good when it was on Cartoon Network. But even though some of those shows have flaws, they still was able to manage to not get canceled, period, or get canceled before the show aired. But Swamp Thing did. And the reason why I think Swamp Thing got canceled is because, other than the fact that it was a very expensive show, that's one of the reasons why it was canceled, and they filmed in the United States, which is very expensive to do, because other shows film in Canada, which is really cheaper. So yeah, that's one thing they had going against them. But the actual suit was amazing. That's a great looking suit, but the dude could barely move in the suit. But what caused it to actually get canceled? Well, it did the same stupid thing that Blade, the TV series, did. And that is, instead of focusing on the title character, they focused on a completely different character in the show. The lead female. Blade did it and Swamp Thing did it. And this Swamp Thing, the show focuses on Dr. Abigail, which is the love interest of Swamp Thing from the comic books. And it's kind of like, why didn't the show just focus on the actual Swamp Thing? That would have made more sense, because the show is called Swamp Thing. The show is not called Dr. Abigail Arcane. So I don't understand why they did that. But everything focuses on her. She is the main character. She's in every episode. The show literally follows her around town. She interacts with some of her old friends from back in the day. She interacts with the family that pretty much took her in when her family died. The show focuses all on her. The Sunder family. She knew them because they took her in when her parents died. The show focuses on them. What's his name? Avery Sunder. He's just like a business tycoon that wants to harness the powers of the swamp. So he brings in Dr. Jason Woodrow, which of course is the fluorescent man. And yeah, this one's way better than the one from the Batman and Robin movie, but this one's way more evil and stuff. And so it's kind of okay, the show primarily focuses on Abigail, but the second main person it kind of focuses on, it's kind of like the Sunder family, kind of, but mostly Dr. Jason. because he was brought in by Avery Sunder to study like the powers of the swamp and stuff, which causes him to be like a mad scientist, corrupt, and then turn into like, you know, the fluorescent man. Even Matt Cable is like tied to Dr. Abigail because he was a friend of hers back like in the day, you know. There's a news reporter named Liz, and she's friends with Abigail. There's not one person who actually knows Dr. Alex Holland. Who is that? Swamp Thing himself. Like, that's what's just so crazy. And so, like, you know, pretty much what happens, he's a disgraced, like, scientist. Him and Abigail out in the swamp, they're doing some stuff. He ends up getting killed. And then towards the end, that's the, you know, you see this, like, mushy, swampy looking monstery thing. And, of course, it's Swamp Thing. So, yeah, it does focus just a tiny bit on, like, Swamp Thing. Because, you know, you get to see, like, him knowing who he is and how he can never be human, and the people trying to hunt him down and trying to harness and trying to hurt like the Green, and he's trying to stop them, and he's developing emotions and stuff like that, and he's having memories of Abigail, and you know, so stuff like that. So it does focus on him a little bit. But here's the interesting thing: they did the worst thing they could have ever done to his character. They not let it focus on him. Turns out Swamp Thing isn't even Alex. It just has his memories. See, back in the comics, for many decades, it was believed that when Alex died, that the chemicals in the swamp merged in his body and he became Swamp Thing. That's how it was for many years, until they retconned it and said, oh no, Alex did die, but his memories got transferred into like the green, swampy, like, you know, leaf stuff. And it turns into Swamp Thing. So Swamp Thing is his own entity with his memories, thinking it is him, but it is not. Now, that was a huge twist in the comic books. It was like, oh my God, like a wow moment. And they did that in this show. And here's the strange thing. They did that plot twist in the first season before they knew they got canceled. Why in the world would you do that? That should have been something leading up to that, you know? Now, some other DC characters do get crammed into this show. They don't have much to do, but they're in there. And two of them, I didn't even know who they were because they don't look nothing like they do in the comic book. And also the third person doesn't really look like the way he does in the comic book until the end. Madame Xanadu, she's in here. She's a blind fortune teller. She's the lady from who played Jackie in the season 1 of The Walking Dead. I had no idea she was Madame Xanadu because she doesn't look the way she does in the comic book. Yeah, she has a purple jacket, but that's like nothing. Now, I'm all for diversity and everything, like I've stated before in my other videos, but I don't understand why they race bent Madame Xanadu. I mean, when you look at her in the comic book, she's pretty exotic as it is. So you'd think they would have went with somebody who's like Armenian or has like Italian in them, or somebody that looks similar to like Janet Montgomery or like Eva Green, you know? So I don't understand why they went like the extreme diverse route. And plus, she's supposed to be younger looking, and nothing against the actress from like The Walking Dead, but she doesn't look like she's in her like 20s or 30s, you know? Phantom Stranger is in this show. I had no idea because he doesn't really look the way he normally does. This dude is like a guy who's just wearing like a greenish trench coat, a rinky-dink green hat that you will wear like in the South, like out in the docks and stuff. And it's kind of like a slicker from like, you know, I Know What You Did Last Summer, that the killer dude, his outfit is kind of like that, but it's green. And you see his face, and you see his eyes. I had no idea he was Phantom Stranger. Now, when it comes to Phantom Stranger, like, I'm all for diversity and everything. Like, you know, it's cool to have like a heavier set person on the show. But this dude doesn't really look the way he does in the comic, you know? Like, the dude, like, in the comic book, his jawline and face is similar to that of, like, Bruce Wayne. And they should have, like, you know, did away with the eyes, and or, like, hid his eyes underneath his head, or, like, something, you know? It just looks like he just looks like a regular guy. Like, that's all he looks like. I mean, yeah, this one outfit looks similar to that of the comic, but he just doesn't look the part. Now, Daniel Cassidy, the Blue Devil, he shows up in this. He's played by the dude from Beverly Hills 90210. Now, the interesting thing about him is that he is a former stuntman who's kind of like still acting, I think, or I'm not really sure. And he has like a Blue Devil costume where he played like this character on TV. And so it's kind of like something happens. I forget what happens and how it happens, but somehow he kind of gets possessed by like the Blue Devil, and then he's having all these weird, freaky weird interaction type stuff. And then he's trying to leave town, but for some reason he can't. And then he ends up saving, I think, Abigail at the last episode where he actually turns into the Blue Devil. And it was actually a pretty cool like moment, you know. But I don't really remember much of what happened because this show is so dull and boring. This show takes itself way too seriously. There's little to no action because the suit is so stiff that the dude who's in it can barely move. Amazon's The Tick, and how every time he was in a fight scene he could barely lift his arms. It's like that. And so, you know, that's another reason why I think the show got canceled. It just wasn't interesting. It just really wasn't. The characters are very boring, very lame, very dry, very one-dimensional, and there was really nothing to really grab onto. The lady who played Dr. Abigail, yeah, she's like a good actress and stuff, but she doesn't look like a scientist type doctor. Like, she looks like a supermodel. Like, it's just like every time I was watching the show and I'm looking at her, I'm all like, you just don't look like a scientist. Like, you don't. You look like you should be on the beach in a bikini getting your picture taken or something. Because when it comes to Swamp Thing, I've noticed DC has been kind of cramming him into a lot of animated stuff. He was in Justice League Dark. He was in Batman and Harley Quinn. He was in Justice League Apocalypse, I think it was called. And he might have even showed up in Young Justice. I don't know why they keep trying to make him a thing because people aren't really all that interested. Now, about like a year later, the show did show up on the CW because they was hoping that the CW would pick it up for a second season. Well, the president is all like, you know, it's a possibility that could happen, but it ain't happened yet. And they were probably testing the waters to see, you know, the ratings when they came on the CW, but people still wasn't watching because they just don't care. Now, he did show up for that Arrowverse crossover, but, you know, that wasn't just, it was just like stock footage, so, you know, nothing new. And you know what's really odd? This should have been a horror romance show. Like, it really should have. Because, you know, Swamp Thing did fight like a monstery type thing in some people, but it was really quick because, you know, the dude couldn't move. But it should have been like a horror beast type of fall in love with the girl, and, you know, because like he couldn't be with her, you know, he used to be with her, and that was really traumatic. Like, they do show elements of that in the show, but not really by much. But that would have been a great thing because the show was created by Len Wiseman from the Underworld movies and James Wan from the Saw movies. How did they screw this up? They were the executive producers of this. And there's really no point in talking about what really happens in each episode because nothing really happens that's really all that interesting, you know? And just like for other like DC Universe, DC shows and stuff, like when it comes to like nobody's talking about none of the shows from DC Universe that are still here and getting renewed. The only thing people are talking about now, Harley Quinn season 3, where Batman is supposed to go down on Catwoman. That's what people are arguing about online, because some people want to see it and other people don't. Personally, for me, I don't want to see that. Why would I want to see cartoon porn? I don't understand people who watch that. It's like, if you're gonna watch it, watch the real thing. And yes, that's Rachel from Boy Meets World. And yes, she did take up a different career. And yes, she does plan on going back to acting in TV shows. And yes, she still plans on doing her other career thing. And yes, you are welcome for this information. Now, there have been talks about having Swamp Thing appear in Legends of Tomorrow, but, you know, I don't see that happening. I really don't. I mean, they would have to make a completely new, like, suit for the dude to actually move in. Legends of Tomorrow is a very wacky show that does not take itself seriously whatsoever. And I just don't see Swamp Thing being as serious as he was in the show, you know, being on this show. So, yeah. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.